Welcome to a new release on the show. This is the 5 questions to nourish the mind, body and soul, to get to know the person sat in front of me a little bit more and ask them questions they wouldn't normally have. This has become very quickly one of my favourite parts of the interview. Now, we are re-releasing these because we released these months ago for our paid subscribers over on my newsletter, The Compassionate Cure on Substack. If you're not a paid subscriber, you will get these months in advance as being part of our community. However, we are now starting to release them. So enjoy. This is more of a personal connection and a shorter episode, but it really gets into the heart and not into the mind of the person who is sat in front of me.
Okay, so these are 5 questions to nourish the mind, body and soul. And I want you to answer these from where you're probably not used to. Most of us answer it from a place of intellect, and I want you to answer it from a place of feeling.
Okay.
So we're going to flip it upside down, okay? So my first question, Chris, is what is one small thing about you that makes you uniquely you?
I think that I grew up hating myself.
That is the antidote of everything that I talk about on self-compassion. It's, how do you feel about that part of you now?
It's obviously much, much better, given where I'm at. But I think when you grow up and that is the core of your being, and those are some core beliefs, although intellectually, I know I can challenge all of those beliefs and understand how that happened and how that wasn't fair or correct. It never fully leaves you. And I actually feel like the fact that I had that experience and that it has not fully left me allows me to be a better psychiatrist.
And an empathetic one too.
Yeah.
Which is key. So this might be quite an interesting next one then. It's around overcoming resistance. What's been the most persistent area of resistance in your life, and how did you overcome it?
I think it probably was that same area. Growing up, hating myself, feeling that I am inferior to others, feeling sometimes that my life has no meaning or purpose. And slowly but surely, I overcame it through, really, I could give the intellectual answer, but I'm going to stay true to what you asked me to do. It was through other people. It was through other people liking me, loving me, accepting me for who I was, that allowed me to begin to accept myself.
That is a really beautiful answer, and I love that you have that in your book, from the love for others, because it's so important. The next big thing, I'm wondering if this is going to stay the same throughout. This would be quite amazing if it does. Small changes, big impacts. What's the smallest change that has brought the most ease into your life?
So although it probably wasn't a small change, some people might think of it as a small change. And even in hindsight, when I recognize how much it changed my life, I do think it's a small change. And I would say changing my diet. Changing my diet when I was in my 20s completely transformed who I am and who I've been since.
Can I ask what you changed it from and to? I've got a thought of what it could be.
So I grew up on a standard American junk food diet, very high in sugar, very high in processed foods. When I was in medical school, I became much more health conscious. I was never officially overweight or obese. But in medical school, I certainly became more health conscious. And so I was on an ultra low fat diet. It was still very high in ultra processed foods, baked goods and ice cream. As long as it was no fat ice cream, it was a health food. At least that's what I was being told by some people back then. And ultimately I developed metabolic syndrome, and then I changed it to essentially a low carbohydrate diet. that consisted more of, because it was a low carbohydrate diet, it consisted a lot more of real food. Meat, fish, eggs, low carb vegetables, some fruits, nuts, seeds, other things. But yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, I feel like you know the questions before I answer them, because my next question, and I resonate to this so much as a nutritionist, by the way, Chris, because that was one of the biggest changes of me connecting to mental health, was studying to become a nutritionist, is health transformation. So you're going to have to give it a different answer, because what's one health related change that you've made that has significantly impacted your well-being, just to Chris, that wasn't changing your diet?
So I think the second thing for me, there are a few things, but probably the more important one is exercise. So I actually grew up kind of a skinny nerd, so to speak. I was such a nerd. I was so ostracized. I had zero physical capacity whatsoever. Here in the United States, back then, we had this thing called the presidential fitness test, and they would make you hang on a bar and try to do a pull-up. And I would often say, I can't do any pull-ups. Can I just skip it? And they would say, no, you have to hang there for 60 seconds and at least try. And I would hang there trying, and everybody would laugh at me and make fun of me because I couldn't do even one pull-up. And then by the time I was in college, I actually started exercising. I started running. I started going to a gym. I think by medical school, I could do my very first pull-up ever. And I remember just the exhilaration that I experienced, that I can do a pull-up. I can pull my body up. People can't laugh at me and humiliate me anymore. I can actually do one pull-up. Exercise is about so much more to me than just my body and the way I look physically or the way I move physically. It certainly helps all of those things. And it's, it's important for your physical health and the way you look and everything. But ultimately, it was really empowering in terms of mental health as well.
Absolutely. I want to ask a question. How many pull-ups can you do now? How many pull-ups can you do right now? If I asked you to go in a pull-up bar, what would you be able to do?
If I was rested, meaning I hadn't just worked out like the day before pretty hard, I could probably, realistically maybe get to 10. Pull-ups have never been my thing, but
that's good. Pull-ups are hard.
I probably pull up 10. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You've done. I was worried that you were going to say I can still do one.
I can definitely still do one. And on a good day, maybe 10.
There's growth. There's growth in the story. I like it. So, Chris, the last question on the 5 questions to nourish your mind, body, and soul is making peace with the past. Hearing the first 4 answers, I feel like there is probably a lot that you could answer this with. But what's been the hardest thing for you to make peace with about your life or self in general?
I could probably give dozens of answers to that. I'll go ahead and give one. I don't even know if it rises to the number 1 list, but it's just the first thing that's coming to my mind. And that was making peace with my father. When I was growing up, I was overall a huge disappointment to my father. I was the firstborn son out of 8 kids. He ended up having 4 other boys. And I was not the stereotypical boy. I was a skinny nerd. I was not athletic at all. There were lots of things wrong with me in his mind. And then later in my life, when actually toward the end of his life, I actually had him move in with me. He was really almost dying. And I put him on a program, changed his diet, changed his exercise. Like, he was actually bedridden, believe it or not. So that's a whole long story that I'd be happy to go into if you want, but we don't have to. But at the end of the day, I was really hoping that process would help me reconcile with him and come to a different understanding. And the actual conclusion that I came to is that I authentically don't like who my father was. He was very racist to his core. He was misogynistic. He really saw women as objects and nothing more. He very strongly disapproved of gay people and people who were different. And that was his worldview to the core. And I was really hoping that like maybe toward the end that he might soften up a little and just be nicer to people, or maybe a little more accepting or understanding of people. And I ultimately realized, no, this is actually who he really is. And I have permission to not like it. and I have permission to still honor and respect him as my father. And he did a lot of wonderful things for our family. And at the same time, I don't have to honor and respect the values that he instilled on other people and the way he treated some other people, at least some groups of people. And that was a process, because it really felt like it was a black or white issue. And I came to this gray area where I could integrate what was good about him and what was not good about him.
I think that's such an amazing answer that many people might resonate to, because there's a lot of guilt and shame that can go with our parents. And I completely believe that you can love someone and not like them.
Yeah. That's that I think that is true. And a lot of people really do have trouble with that concept, that how is that possible? But I think that just even that concept, whether people disagree on what it means to love or like, but that concept allows for the gray, that gray zone of, no, I respect this person. This person is my parent. I certainly had attachment to this person when I was younger, but now I'm grown up. I see the world through my own lens, and I have a different set of values. And if they don't align with that person, it doesn't mean I have to disown the person or give up on everything that happened. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Chris, thank you. I feel like these questions have provided me so much insight into our main interview that I can't wait. I can't wait to dig deep.